Jenkins.
Here.
Triplett.
Here.
Sires.
Yes.
Hill.
Here.
Excellent. Move on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. We'll move on to item number 4. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that is here to address anything that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes from April 18th, 2016.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Now we'll move on to item number 6, Lakewoods rezoning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request by Todd and Christy Drake, who are the property owners. This is a little bit strange in the way the request is in front of you. Before review could be done, according to our code, we have to send out letters 7 to 10 days prior. Now, that doesn't mean we always that we have to send them out for P&Z, but we've always done it as a practice. So P&Z has an opportunity to hear from the neighbors within 250 feet. To make sure that we complied with the 7 and 10 day rule, those letters were sent out on May 6th. After the May 6th, staff started looking into the rezoning request, and Kathleen is here, so I gave the quick background, and she's more prepared on this portion than I am.
Okay, yeah, apologize for being late. What Gary said is accurate. We hadn't reviewed, and honestly, when we get a rezoning request, since if it's for R2, we don't actually even have to see a concept plan. But I was kind of trying to review where the boundaries should be with respect to the street center lines and that kind of thing. And so that was how we got the concept plan. And in looking at the concept plan, the west side of the area, which is referred to as the by-attached homes, they're not shown with the lots that would meet the R2, but they're kind of shown as more postage stamp lots. But in conversations with Caleb Smith from McClure, they can, in fact, make those lots fit the R2 zoning regulations in terms of lot width and lot size. However, what they're proposing is a private street, so it gets to be a little bit challenging in terms of how you apply lot width and setback. You know, technically setback is measured then from the center line of the lot, because the private street's just an easement. So it's not that you can't make it work, but it's a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, if you will. And then the villas that are on the east side of the proposed rezoning area, or the west side of Roosevelt, whichever way you want to look at it, those could be adjusted again to meet the R2. They would probably lose one lot there in order to get the lot width on those. They would wind up losing one of those villas. So from our perspective, in order, particularly in terms of making the private street and the by-attached work, it seemed like a PUD would actually be cleaner and wouldn't be, I guess, stretching your ordinance or having questionable application on the ordinance. In terms of, as an example, if you look at a private street, where is the front yard? The front yard's really against the public street, which in this case would be Edgewater Drive. So again, you start not having really front yard setbacks on any of the internal lots. So that's kind of the rationale for why we are recommending a PUD rezoning, and then attaching that as that would be the plan that you've got attached there would be the master plan for that PUD. From that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think Kathleen did a pretty good job of summarizing it. Oh, sorry, I'll say my name just for the record. Caleb Smith, McClure Engineering Company, 1360 Northwest 121st and Clive. When we started developing this project I had unintentionally misinterpreted the code on the R2 zoning and what they look for multifamily. And so that's where we kind of got off kilter here on these villas. As we were developing this project initially, we were trying to figure out how do we transition from the existing residential here on the east and somewhat to the north here from the project, the townhome project over here on the west. And as Todd started figuring out what to do, as you might remember, some of you probably don't, I don't think many of you were actually on P&Z when it happened. When we first came through, probably back in 06, 05, we had this all single family, and it kind of made sense at the time. Well, as the property around started developing, Todd thought, you know, we really need to transition from what's more dense townhome ground to more single family residential over here. And so this is how we came up with the project, with a nice bi-attached unit that would be sitting here. As Kathleen had said, this diagram is more of a spacing diagram for us as we're doing our front-end planning. We can certainly draw on the appropriate lot lines to make them platted lots, proper sizes and all that, so we have no issues meeting the ordinance there. But we really felt strongly that this villa project here would make a lot of sense in this community. It's kind of a product we're seeing throughout a lot of the metro communities. Many of you may have even seen these kind of products. 2-car, 3-car varieties will be located in this project to kind of transition out of the attached project into the single family over here. And then, of course, we're proposing 9 single-family lots here consistent with what the zoning is. Probably the bigger issue we have in all this is that your ordinance does say that PUD has to be 10 acres in size. We could easily add in the single-family ground, make that part of the PUD and hit the 10 acres. I don't know if it gains us a whole lot. We certainly can do it if we want to be procedurally consistent with the ordinance. I do think it's a reasonable request to have P&Z forward that recommendation if you guys so agree that while it's not 10 acres, it meets the intent of the PUD. It's kind of hamstrung in the fact it's all penned in from all sides. Certainly that we think is a reasonable approach, so that's why we're just leaving the multifamily stuff in the PUD at this time and the single family consistent with the R1, that R1A that it is right now. So happy to answer any questions. Todd and Christy Drake are here. They could talk a little bit about the product types, or any questions about what they're thinking about there. But again, it's going to be consistent with a lot of stuff you see around West Des Moines, Norwalk, Urbandale, and those areas.
And honestly, to kind of jump in there, we felt that the gradual transition of lot size and that kind of thing was easier to accommodate in the PUD, and then you have a plan that's tied to it, whereas if it went straight to R2, technically they could put duplex or bi-attached homes on any of those lots, and we kind of like that transition, the gradual transition, if you will. They've also have, if you'll notice, the villa to the north there is a larger lot. I think it's about a 90-foot lot there, where it's abutting the existing home on Roosevelt too. So
we're actually creating a larger than required buffer area than your ordinance would ask for. Just thinking, you know, these folks that live next door to open area, you know, while it's going to change this transitional area here on the north side, you know, keeping that in kind of a buffer area seems to make sense to be kind of a good neighbor there. Luckily, you know, taking that away doesn't get us any more density or value, so it's an easy thing to do to try and be a good neighbor here. So that was an easy thing to just push everything as far to the south as we could.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, go ahead, Ron, sorry.
I was just gonna ask if you could help me out here. My drawing doesn't have any street names on them. I'm having a hard time relating what. That's Roosevelt.
Davis, and this
Okay.
is where Edgewater is, so the
Okay.
church will be to the south.
Thank you.
You bet.
The, what's it called, villas, will that be a town home association, or what?
Yeah,
And what about the duplexes then?
This would all be part of this. This will all be an association kind of situation. Even though these products are different, they'd all be a part of it. We're going to have to work out some of the
In terms
terms.
of maintenance of the yards and all that kind of stuff, is that what you're thinking?
Exteriors will all be maintained. Absolutely right. There's a little bit of a liability issue that you get in these projects because these products front a public street, and these would be fronting a private street made up with 2 associations that go up to a master association. smarter people than me typically put those things together in a way that's pretty consistent across the metro area. That'll all be worked through as this continues to develop. But all those villas would be treated just like you'd have townhomes. You'd have consistency in the lawn care, consistency in the upkeep of the exteriors of the building.
So, first of all, I do like that the single-family lots that are up against Edgewater, I guess it would be, are indeed outside of the PUD and staying with their current zoning, and that we're leaving the lots that abut lots that are already developed unchanged from their current zoning. I think that's a real plus to not tinker with what was there. The PUD leaves me a little frustrated in that normally when I think of a PUD, what I think of is a situation where we being the city are being flexible on setbacks and other ordinances. And then there will tend to be in the development more open public green space that's shared amongst those units and maybe even folks that are passing through the development. I don't see that kind of concept holding true here.
Yeah, because of the size of this parcel, we're a little bit hamstrung with exactly what you're talking about. One of the things Kathleen commented on that is absolutely something we'll need to do. You know, we've got sidewalks shown on kind of the single-family side of the street, and I did not get that, but that's purely on me. But we'll have sidewalks that'll go all the way around, and it'll come up internal to this project. What we don't have is the ability to create these kind of bigger open spaces, so we kind of have larger passive areas. We've got this large area over here in between the townhome project and the bi-attached project we're proposing here. That would be a larger open space that could be utilized for both the residents and folks walking along Edgewater. That would always be open. The north side, we're going to keep more as a buffer area. I mean, could it be used for open space? Sure, but it's probably more going to be just kind of some screening, some aesthetic purposes here. It's going to be tough for us to provide exactly what you're asking for, and the best case I can make for it is this area over here in the southwest part of the site. That's kind of that extra open space we've got. The other reason that we're asking for the PUDs, we're not really proposing any real changes as far as perimeter setbacks or anything else. All we're asking for is a consideration to allow this product that I really think is only viable in your PUD ordinance. Push came to shove, we probably could have made a case to R2 here. As Kathleen said, we would have had to work on it, but I think we could have gotten it done. It's this product here, the way your ordinance is set up is really, really hard to provide that product, and it's a product that's being done all across the metro area. I think it'd be very viable up here in Polk City. That's really what's pushing us there. So it's kind of a unique situation, and the best answer to your question, the open space is this kind of spot we've got here, but with about 8 acres, it's pretty tough to do what you're thinking about. That's why I think your ordinance is well written, that it should be over 10 acres. I agree. This is kind of a unique situation.
Well, are there issues with private street in terms of access for law enforcement and fire and other services like that? I mean, is there, I mean, I'm asking is there an issue for the city on those things like that?
I don't exactly know what the roadway width is. I don't have that scaled here.
I mean, I realize this is a concept plan, but
I think we have those at 26 foot wide, so that'd be pretty comparable to what some communities allow for cul-de-sac street widths.
Yeah, 26 foot wide Polk cities. I mean, so we would probably need to look at the turnaround at the north and how that would be accommodated.
But from a fire truck perspective, they can come in, back up, and turn out. We've seen those kind of accesses work in other parts of the metro area as well.
Unfortunately, the city won't be responsible for snow removal.
Right.
So that'll be done privately.
In some ways, it's easier to just push it off the end of the street instead of cul-de-sac. We have to try and find a way to bring it out. So.
R1A net.
R1A.
And the R1A would remain on the east side.
On the 9 lots on the east side.
Okay, and then the PUD is just that 8 acre, basically.
Middle of Roosevelt, westward.
And the Edgewater would be taken on through over to Parker, right?
Right, this will tie into, Edgewater's been ordered up by the council. It was under petition and waiver, and with the development of the church, which is between Edgewater going south to Bridge Road, determined the need for Edgewater, and when council went ahead and approved the site plan for the church, they at the same time ordered the road to be constructed and the utilities be placed along it.
And when you say the townhome project, that's really the apartments over there, isn't it?
Parker Townhomes that Bruce Lefkoe developed there, those are fourplexes. They're actually on the west and the north, or most of the north, not 100% of the north. But
That might help a little bit. You can kind of see the aerial off of that.
yeah. If you look at that zoning map, the whole area that's, the brown area, the dark brown was Parker Townhomes Phase 2, which you put in, I believe it was 7 fourplex units. And then the orange area was the original Parker Townhomes, which had...
You have it backwards, that's 7.
The other one's 8, 6, anyway, yeah, sorry. Yeah,
So all we're doing is a zoning request here.
right.
We still will see the site plan.
Yeah, well, and,
work
I mean,
out all
one of the
those
things,
details.
it's not in the memo, but that you may want to do is make part of the motion that they add a note that would require the 2-family, or the bi-attached and villas to come back with you with a site plan. They can do that maybe as in conjunction with the final plat, but or the preliminary plat. That way you could look at sidewalks and, whether they had, any amenities around the, and they've got they do have visitor parking stalls in there, which, again, technically in your R2 you wouldn't have to have, so, but having it clarified that you would require a site plan prior to or in conjunction with, or as part of the preliminary platting process, but prior to building permits, I guess.
And is there drainage issues that we need to be concerned with?
Well, that you would review with the platting. They'll have to do a preliminary plat, and then, like I said, at some point, my recommendation is that they have a site plan before building permits are issued. But they would go through the platting process first, because they'll have to build Roosevelt, obviously, before they can construct any of the villas. So you would have a plat there, and with the site plan / platting process, you would get the chance to review all the drainage.
I think the process we're planning on going through is we'll bring the preliminary plat forward as quickly as we can. That way you guys can get a big picture, hey, here's what's going to happen overall, and then we'll come forward with the site plan and construction drawings for the public improvements at one time, so you can get the last of those details, make sure it's right, and then you'll have your chance to make those approvals.
Yeah,
as we go through the
I mean,
process.
construction drawings technically go straight to council, but the
Sure.
site plan will
Site
go to
plan would come
both.
through at a similar
Yeah.
timeline.
Yep.
Kathleen, I thought you said just the bio-attached that we should require a site plan.
No,
and a-
I started to say, and I was
But
correcting.
you mean the whole thing?
I mean, everything within the,
Okay.
well, you'll have a preliminary plat on the entire thing. The site plan would just be the villas, and you would not need a site plan for the single-family homes on the east side of Roosevelt.
So you're asking for a site plan that includes the bi-attached product, private street, and
Yeah.
all the utilities that would service that, and then a site plan to basically show how those villas would sit on those platted lots that would come off the public street.
Right, and how the sidewalks would be
Yeah.
run through there, those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah, everything
We can
within the
surely do
PUD.
You bet.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yep.
easy.
Anyone in the audience?
Madam Chair, I was handed today a statement from Jason England. He's at 920 Tyler Street. This is handwritten. He opposed the rezoning. He'd like to see it kept at single family. However, if you do approve the townhomes, require a homeowner association. He simply just doesn't like that the end of town turning into multifamily, doesn't want the area to turn into Cherokee, and I think in that case he's meeting Cherokee Street that's in close to the library.
And I mean, as I recall, the biggest issue in the Cherokee neighborhood is parking. And
Absolutely.
our parking ordinance has changed to where that should not be an issue with any development, I would say.
Just have single car garages too.
Yeah,
It's just kind of, so it's
It's
single
got
car
single
and
car
no, yeah.
and
Single
one car and room
just
for one car
one
outside of the
in
garage.
the driveway.
And there's no association.
And there's no association.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
yes.
I was the one that took that statement,
Yes.
and his biggest concern was that the area does not turn into what happened up on Cherokee. He kept bringing that up over and over again, so I reassured him that the developer had said that they would be putting in a homeowners association to alleviate that issue, and obviously there would be ample parking based on our code, but he did not bring up parking specifically, but he did bring up the constant turnover and the way that area up there works. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Sure. If you would state your name and your
Yes.
address, please.
My name is Jacob Pike. I live on 910 Tyler Street. Jason's actually my next door neighbor, and we share a lot of the same beliefs. Couple big things is that this isn't large acreage of land. What they're proposing here doesn't correlate with our community thought process. Pretty much they're bringing up 3 different types of communities and smashing them all into a small piece of land. Because you've got the villas, you got the duplexes, and then you got the single family homes. So essentially, you're going to have one area that technically would not need an association for the single family homes, but then you got 2 separate ones that could be managed by an overall association. But we're looking at 5 years, 10 years down the road. Same thing happens in West Des Moines, the same thing happens in Clive. These townhomes sell, like, they're going out of style. Then mom or dad, grandma or grandpa, they pass away. Their kids, grandkids don't want to deal with it. They want to rent out the property. What's going to happen with that? Because I've personally seen and lived in some of these communities up in Des Moines, and that's the whole reason why we moved here, is because we don't want to deal with that, because unfortunately associations, unless they're a strict association that stays on top of things, it's not going to make a difference. You're going to have people that aren't taking care of their stuff. They're going to have trash and everything else around here. And unfortunately, that's what you see with multifamily homes, especially in small communities. They're just not upkept. And that's one of my biggest concerns, because I've got a young family. A lot of my neighbors have a young family. And I don't know how you can really see 3 different types of homes in a small community like this being within a block of each other, really.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kathleen, how many single-family homes, excuse me,
No, go ahead.
how many single-family homes would have been on the train?
I believe it was 32 or 33. One of those 2. When it was purely zoned as R1A.
Okay, are we looking at the whole thing with the duplexes
What?
and the?
When I was saying 32 or 33, that would include the 9 on the east side of Roosevelt. So they would have had 33 or 34 in what's the area that's PUD. They're proposing to leave those 9, the 9 lots on the east side of Roosevelt are R1A now. That was originally to the plan. They're planning on leaving those, so that's why they're not included in the zoning request. But now they've got, I don't know, with the villas, I mean, they obviously have higher density than what they had before.
Gentlemen, did you have a comment?
My name is Steve Orston. We live at 900 Tyler. And I guess I would be opposed to it just for the concerns, just as my neighbor had pointed out. But already we have condos in the area and we have townhomes in the area. And what you're doing is you're ruining the family and the community part of it, because it will all just be a townhome area. And it will make our homes, I think, less valuable, because people will see it as a stepping stone instead of a community. That's all I have to say.
Did you have, go ahead.
I'm Christy Drake from Drake Homes, and Todd and I are the ones that are proposing this. If you want to check our website and see the kind of homes we build, we're planning on making this really nice. And we have built in Waukee and sometimes even in housing developments when they don't take care of them. And when you have associations, sorry, I'm nervous. We don't get out and talk to people most of the time. But we're going to have an association that's going to maintain. And if you go through, Todd and I both worked for a national builder, Rotland Homes, before we started in business. And if you go and look at any of the Rotland townhomes, they're beautiful. And townhomes sell just like houses sell. And you know, we plan on maintaining it. It's kind of a natural progression. The villas would be for empty nesters. The 55 and older in Iowa are becoming a huge group of people. And it has been a very good product for people. The single family townhome that you can have, and you don't have to, when you're downsizing and you're not attached. So we were just trying to make it so it would all flow. And now I think I'm going to throw up. Sorry.
I apologize. I had one other question, just because I'm newer to Polk City. I've only been here for a couple of years. And I'm not knocking you guys at all. This is, again, from personal experience. Do we have ordinances where, for like the separation boundaries and stuff, where they're required for a certain number of trees that have to be between, you know, the types of homes and essentially the 3 different types of communities that they're wanting to put into this lot of land? We do. Okay.
Yeah, we do have, the city of Polk City does have buffer requirements, but not between single family and 2 family.
Okay.
And so none of these actually fall within your stated requirements. I mean, it could be something that you make a part of the PUD or something, but there's not in your ordinance based on single, you know, if it was R2 and R1 or something, you would not have any buffer requirements that would be imposed from an ordinance standpoint.
Because that's my next concern, is that I've seen communities, one that's really close to us, where the city put in certain standards and codes, and then they did not uphold them, and so there was no disconnection between the 2 different communities within the town, and it just made life a lot more angry, I guess you could say. So.
Madam Chair, one thing that you could do is ask the developer if they would be willing to plant in that buffer area some trees. I mean, it is a PUD, so that does give you that opening.
And then typically what we do when it comes to platting is then the buffer is in an easement that calls for perpetual maintenance of it, so that the maintenance of that buffer doesn't, you know.
Can you tell me where you're talking about the buffer again, please?
Be the north part. It looks like it's about a 60-foot buffer.
Yeah, I mean, this, you could have it right in here. I mean, at this point, you're next to Bruce Lefkoe's.
Are there trees there already? Are there trees there already?
There'll be some.
I mean, most, with the exception of the side of the house on Roosevelt, which is one that I'd really be concerned about. The rest of that buffer to the west primarily backs to the garages from the townhome development. Yeah. And also on the west side of this property, it's primarily backing to the backs of the garage from the townhome. townhome
Right.
development.
You'd almost want the buffer for the benefit of,
Correct.
of these
Yeah,
folks as opposed
correct.
to the other way
Yeah,
around.
You want the
on that
buffer
side.
for trying to sell these properties, not to protect the other properties.
Right. Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Yep.
That area. North of the northernmost villa would be where you'd be abutting a single-family home.
Correct.
So the R1A is under the current land use plan and was carried forward into the, well, I mean, the old, you know, have a new land use plan that hasn't been published yet, right, as part of it. But, so that really hasn't changed from the old to the new. It stayed R1A.
Well, both of, it was low, if you're looking at the comprehensive plan, it was designated as low-density residential in
Okay.
Probably the biggest thing that's changed since the old plan is just the fact that the Parker townhomes to the north, you had R3 to the west, but the area to the north at one point had, which is,
Well, see, this is
this area is now in fourplexes as well. So, where this was always contemplated to be R3, and it was actually R3, I think, even before the 2002 comprehensive plan was done. The fact that this is now, I mean, so it's kind of, you've got wrapped on two sides, and then obviously the church has come in from on the south side. So you've had changes in land use to the north and the south that weren't contemplated.
Yeah, is Roosevelt the north-south?
Yes, the easternmost north-south street,
There's
yes.
these 9 lots across the street there
Mhm.
to the east,
Yes,
and that's not developed.
no,
And who owns that land?
they do. They would be, it's already been rezoned, so it's been rezoned to R1A, but not been developed. So it would be developed, you know, when Roosevelt goes in.
Okay. And can you give me the definition of R1A again, just to refresh?
It's essentially single-family, smaller lots. I believe they have 65-foot wide lots. Let me just verify that because,
So right now, this whole site that we're looking at for the PUD is R1A, correct?
correct. Yeah, it was originally, they had a preliminary plat back in like 2006, 2007 that had Roosevelt going through and it had Davis going, and actually Davis was going on through, which as you know, when the townhomes went in for Parker townhomes, Davis no longer goes through. And then there was a new street, Lincoln I believe is what it was called, that was north-south and parallel to Roosevelt. So essentially you had two streets, you know, Davis on the north, Roosevelt on the south, and then two north-south streets with R1A lots on either side. So they've kind of eliminated 3 rows of homes and put the PUD there, if that makes sense.
And it was all, at that time, all gone through a single family.
Yes, it was
Smaller
all,
lots.
yeah. Yep,
Smaller
with the
lots.
with smaller, 65-foot wide lots. Like I said, there was either 32 or 33 lots at that point in total.
Is it because the streets don't go through now, is it very difficult to develop that into R1A?
No.
Yeah, that's a good question. When we were kind of reevaluating this project, when Todd and Christie said, hey, we'd like to see what we can do with it, last fall, I think we started looking at this. You know, with the changes that happened to the west and to the north here, the real only option we had for, let's say, the west half of the property would have been to do a simple street with a cul-de-sac, but with the width we had left, you couldn't get a cul-de-sac in proper depths for the lots. You'd have unbuildable lots on both sides of the cul-de-sacs. So it became, there's a big chunk of that's really hard to develop under that scenario. Then the only other option then was to run a public street all the way around with no lots fronting it, and then the cost just didn't make sense. You couldn't appropriately develop it. as Christie continued to kind of look at this market and throw some ideas around, the one thing that came up was, you know, in Polk City, we understand everybody's concerns about townhome projects, and we've all can think of a project that's gone bad. But, you know, these guys, they do this stuff. They know how to set it up right. We think there's a vast need for this kind of product in the market right now. The buy-attached specifically, we think is going to go very, very well. Given the changes that's happened around this property since we first started looking at it, with this going to the fourplex, it's really changed the nature of the area. We really think that the buy-attached is a natural complement to kind of step down that zoning. The villas here, really the difference in the villas is about 1 unit. And the reason that we like the villas, the reason the villas work so well is because they have such a single-family feel. The setbacks what we're doing on the side are the same as the R1. We're doing 15-foot side setbacks. So we're not asking for you as a P&Z to say, hey, move forward with reduced side yard setbacks and really crunch these units together. We could have done that and maybe slipped in another unit there. We decided, you know what, we want to keep this as a good, strong residential feel. While there is 1 extra unit in this stretch, you're still going to have 2-car garages here for most of these to the south. These up here, especially adjacent to the existing residential there, 3-car garage, 45-foot wide house, something that you could see built on an R1A lot and do fine. That being said, as we started looking at how to make this work, while we were willing to give up on maybe that 1 extra unit we could get in there, anything beyond that starts to make it pretty difficult on the financial side. It's kind of a nice balancing act we're having to balance here. So that's kind of how we settled on what we settled on, is keeping this feeling as residential, single-family residential in nature as we can, knowing we're going to put 9 new lots here. They're going to back up to all these existing residents here. We felt like it was just a natural transition that will do very, very well. And I don't think these will feel out of place at all. While they'll be a little smaller, it's not going to be so noticeable that it's going to feel awkward, in my opinion. That's kind of the history of why we're at where we're at. Could we do single family in there? Yeah, I don't think it'd be financially viable. My guess is Todd and Christy would probably sit on the ground and do nothing with it. And really, at this point in time, we got to find a plan that's going to work with what we've got here. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe in 10 years it would be viable again. You know, I don't claim to have a crystal ball on that issue.
Is the intention to sell everything? No rental units?
I think the product could be rental, could be sold. We're going to set everything up to be sold, and we'll see what the market does. If it does it, then yeah, there'll be rentals.
Hey, Kathleen, if we kept it as a R1A, they could go back in and put the single or the buy-attached homes in that whole area.
Did we do a restriction on the R1A when we did that?
I'd have to look up there, but the R1A, I don't believe you can do multifamily or buy-attached at all. No, yeah, you'd have to go, I mean, R2 is the lowest that you can get into your buy-attached or duplex type units. So the only thing you could put in R1A is a single family.
I think it's a difference in size of lot as a difference
Yeah.
in R1 and R2.
Yep. Your R1 is 80 foot and the R1A is 65. And then the lot size is on R1A is 6,400 square feet versus 10,000 on an R1. So there are lots, the lots themselves in the R1A are quite a bit smaller than what you would have in your standard R1.
Okay. Let's just say, for some reason, we didn't like all the duplexes in there.
Mm-hmm.
We could rezone it PUD, but only allow bio-attached homes. Is that correct?
You're saying you don't like the duplexes? I'm
just
sorry.
Doing a scenario.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the buy-attached and the duplexes.
Let's say we want all bio-attached homes in there. No duplexes.
Okay. I mean, they're kind of the same thing. I mean, buy-attached means a 0 lot line.
Yeah.
And typically what the difference is buy-attached, you have a lot.
So we're talking about the same thing there.
I mean, at least the difference is more how the lots are broken up. The building still is a 2-family home, whether it's buy-attached or duplexes. Duplexes, you have 1, 2, it's on 1 lot, both homes.
There's no lines between the middle.
Right. Whereas if buy-attached, you've got a 0 lot line, so they each own their own lot.
Okay. So they're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, I mean, they're same product. It's a little bit, yeah, how much land do you own? Yeah.
I was just looking here, and this is kind of an island sitting in the middle of, this is all R2 here. This is R1 up this here is R1, but this is R2, R3, commercial, and R3, so it's kind of an island right in the middle of that, and if, the thing is, if we carried that same thing forward into the new adopted plan, then, it would seem to me that if you're gonna change your land use, that should have been changed to, something more dense than what it was carried forward into the new plan. So, we're changing the use plan, we just adopted.
So Kevin, can you clarify one more time? I apologize. In the R1, you're saying you can only have a single family home per lot?
Yeah, in the R1A.
In the R1A?
Yep.
Okay. What's this, this is 1 or 2 family detached on page 829.
Okay. Well, that's allowed in the R2. Is that what you...
Well, that's what I'm trying to
Okay,
I'm trying to read.
are you looking at, and
I'm looking at the table, and maybe I need to look.
on the site development regulations? Sorry, I apologize, my page numbers are not the same. So
Yeah, sorry, that's it.
That's all right. So yeah, if you're looking at the table,
Yeah.
if you're asking for the difference between single family by attached and duplex two family, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think that's, I'm trying to understand what that means.
Yep. A single family by attached is from the outside, it's going to look like a duplex.
Okay.
But there's a lot line that goes down the middle of the dividing wall. So this half of the duplex, or two-family home owns half of the lot. The other half owns kind of the other half of the lot. In a duplex type home, there's one lot and typically one owner then, unless it's in a condominium regime. But if it's just, otherwise it's one owner, they own both lots, and they either live in one unit and rent it out, or rent out both of them. So, I mean, I guess I would say the duplex type lots, which is not what we're talking about here, are more likely to have rental units, just because you've got one owner for both sides.
Well, the houses that we see in brown there, what are you calling that?
Those are villas. It's the way, it's the term.
Single-family villas.
Those are single family in a townhome regime. In other words, one family would own them, but one company would be responsible for all the lawn mowing and snow removal and that kind of thing.
Are you calling these duplexes or bio-attached?
Those are by attached.
No duplexes here.
No,
All right.
at least not as a.
Yeah, the plan is each building in the bi-attached, each side would have its own platted lot, could be sold off and owned by each individual. It's pretty common in most towns. We're not doing one lot where one person's on the side and rents out or rents
Yeah.
both, whatever the case may be. We're going to have it so that each unit can be individually sold off to other end users.
Yeah, and that's the term that they used on there. If you look at the upper left-hand corner,
talking
they didn't
like
use
Wolf
duplex. They used by attached.
Similar like what we have down Wolf Creek. Right?
Yep.
Or tournament club townhomes.
Club
Yep.
townhomes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because tournament club townhomes, you've got the by-attached and you've got the single family. They're a little bit more interspersed,
together.
but it's the same kind of thing where one is a patio home, if you will, in a townhome regime.
I the villas versus, I was trying to think of, I was thinking duplexes, and it's all one unit, it's just a different type of housing style, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, like Eagle Way up in Tournament Club has the villa type
Okay.
of homes.
All right.
But they're all covered under one association because they all come into the private street.
Mhm.
And so where this is, some of the units will be going to a public street, and those people probably don't want to pay for the street maintenance.
Yeah, that's
There's a
what
little
Caleb was
different
talking about.
liabilities. That's why you'll
Yeah,
have a master association that will oversee the whole thing, but
some of them will get higher fees.
yes.
So do the villas meet the ordinance for R1A?
They do not because of lot size. They would lose, in order to get the 65-foot width, these are a little bit less than 65-foot width, so they would wind up losing one of the villas to go to R1A.
And they'd lose several units if it were left alone.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's a higher density than what our new comprehensive plan
Yeah, yep.
has.
It is 5 dwelling units an acre, and your comprehensive plan says low density residential is 4 dwelling units an acre. That's why we have the comprehensive plan amendment on there. In order to, if you approve this plan, you need to approve a comprehensive plan amendment that would allow medium density residential within the PUD area, not within the area east of Roosevelt that abuts the existing single family.
And staff isn't making a recommendation that we change this to a PUD. You're
We-
simply presenting
Yeah.
what has been requested by the developer.
Yeah, we typically don't, on rezonings, make a recommendation. We just kind of say, here's the pros and cons. You know, the others, I mean, like if it's a preliminary plat or something, if it meets code, and meets all your requirements, rezonings are a little bit more subjective, so I don't normally put a recommendation. I just say, if P&Z recommends it, then do this, kind of a thing. So I guess that's typical.
Can I ask your opinion, and if you'd rather not give it, I'll understand that.
I'll just say this, I don't think we would have made it in front of you if staff didn't have.
Can I ask, please?
Oh, my apologies.
Thanks. This area could be developed still in R1A, correct?
It could. I think the challenge, I mean, when I look at it from a challenge standpoint, I think the fact that you've got one large continuous garage on the west for Parker Townhomes and garage on the north, so the backyard to the north and the west, I think the large garage there makes it a little bit more challenging. I mean, or, you know,
Laying out streets and getting streets?
well, not so much streets, it's just, I guess, the desirability of the lot to have a single-family lot that you're then paying the higher price, because single-family lots are more expensive just because of all the infrastructure that you have to have, and to have that where in your backyard you've got a large multifamily garage. I think that makes it a more challenging lot to sell. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not in the business of selling those lots.
Yeah, this is all multi-family garage back here.
Yeah, yeah.
And on the north and west.
North and west. Yeah, so you got around those two sides, other than, like I said, just about north of that one villa. But everything north and west of the bi-attached is in Parker Townhomes, is fourplexes. But primarily it's the garage that's abutting.
Thanks.
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, the point was made. I was just going to add, I don't think we would have been in front of P&Z if staff didn't think it was at least a reasonable approach. They've been really good work with trying to figure out how to make this make sense within your ordinance. So that was all my point was going to be. So.
Thanks.
Can I make a comment? Take a chance. I'm Todd Drake Holmes. And when we got this in '05, and Caleb and Christy and I started working on it, this was all trees along here, and it was just beautiful ground. And now it's like we've talked about, it's just the back of garages and very little trees. So that's why when we originally did it, we had it as single family, because we thought these would be the most desirable lots would be back in here, and they've since changed to looking at the back of a garage, all flat, one garage. So that's one reason why we switched it. And also we're kind of taking on going from single family to the back of a garage. We're taking the responsibility of making that change within our ground. So I think those two things are pretty key in this whole development. And yeah, the streets did change also, but just to try to sell a house backing up to those garages, I agree with Kathleen, it would be extremely difficult to do. Thanks.
Is there trees, on this map, it still looks like there's trees here. Are they all gone along here?
There are still a few.
Yeah, there'll be some in there. What this aerial doesn't accurately reflect is what's happened up in here, obviously. So how much in that area is going to be there. Some of these will be in, and with the buffer area you can see on the west end of our project, obviously we're going to do everything we can to protect those. But I know up here with this north parcel 5 that's on this rezoning exhibit, there's been some pretty sizable stuff removed out of there. So anything along this north side of that property is going to definitely be dealing with it. Over here, we'll have to see when we get in there how much is left. We're going to be doing a fresh topo here soon when we get favorable response from you folks and council on the rezoning.
Did you express any concern when they were looking at this building project, changing it from, they had it, wasn't it like R2, R1? It was, and then he came back through our process and wanting to do the, did you guys have any comment to when the developer at that point in time? Did you have conversations?
The meeting,
Okay.
I've been a realtor for 22 years. Am I supposed to stand up? Or can I stay seated? Okay. And I went and explained to the people that were there, this is, you know, these townhomes are going to make your houses worthless, you know. So we tried, but it went through.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you guys were talking about the north and the west side of the lot. What about the stuff that's already on the existing homes on the east side? Are you guys' intentions to keep that tree line that's right now existing on all the fence road?
If it's on the fence row, we likely won't touch it. I mean, if you're 15 feet off that fence, there's a chance we may have to just from drainage perspective, but if it's on that fence row, and let's put the caveat, it's a healthy tree too, I mean, because every once in a while there's trees that probably should go for the sake of everybody. Our intent is to keep that. I mean, that's a benefit to those lots that we're trying to put in there as well. So.
I guess I have a concern about when you're talking about the trees. I too was at that meeting where you were talking about where they removed all the trees. There are still trees back there. You've said that, oh, we'll try to keep most of them. If you go drive by the Parker place, they said the same thing. They're not there anymore. You say healthy trees. Define yourself as a healthy tree. Most of the trees in the fence line are just that. They're fence line trees, so they're hackberry, mulberry. Something that you wouldn't consider may not consider desirable, so they would be removed.
That's not absolutely true that they would be removed. I'm saying our philosophy on this is I would rather say, hey, here's the trees we plan on removing, and we just actually did this in a project in Norwalk and actually met with all the impacted neighbors, and we sat there and said, I mean, is this tree worth saving or not? Nope, okay, we'll take it. If it's worth saving, we'll be even just degrading a little bit to accommodate it. We're happy to, we get that point. And again, this isn't the last shot. I mean, the next step after this is going to get more detail when I can actually say, hey, this is the area I'm worried we may end up having to affect those trees. At least then we can have those conversations. So while I understand your concern, I just don't have enough detail right now to tell you what that's going to look like.
And unfortunately, my concern with that is by that time, really it's too late for us to say, no, we don't want to lose these trees because it would be too late.
Understood. There's 2 more steps in this process before we can start doing that. You got the preliminary plat phase and of course the site plan phase. That will give us the detail. I would just encourage you to stay in tune with what's happening here. All meetings are posted and information is available.
And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't tell you for sure where we're going to have that issue or not at this point in time.
And I guess my other concern was when they originally posted this, they were talking about selling it. But then you also says, well, if they don't sell, then we're going to rent. So ideally, it would be nice to say that these are going to be villas and these are going to be townhomes and that everybody's going to buy them and they're going to keep them up. But ultimately, there's as good a chance that they're all going to be a rental and it will be a rental area.
But they'll be in an association. So the association takes care of the outside. Doesn't matter who's in it, it's taken care of. And a lot of times, the association ground's taken care of better than a single family ground.
But still, then it's not the community. Because I was also at that meeting that you were talking about where you were talking about the plan was, and that would have been just last year with the Parkers, that these were gonna be single-family homes.
No, we didn't talk about our piece at all. We talked about Bruce's piece, that he was gonna put those in.
And I heard the same things Bruce say, well, we're gonna be respectful, we're going to put rock on the outside to make it look nice. I guess, did any of that happen?
He has artificial stone on the exterior of it, but I can guarantee you that ours will look a lot better than Bruce's. Nothing against Bruce personally, but it's just going to be a different product than he has.
I know, but I just, and I, nothing against, but I also heard this, the exact same things that we're hearing here from Bruce.
Okay, well, I think we need to make a decision whether or not we're gonna take any action on number 6 as a, thank you for your comments, everyone. So, I don't know what your thoughts are.
I guess I had concerns about how we go from single family to the existing townhomes on Parker. In what is really, as the developer described, is in a relatively short space. And there does need to be some sort of gradual change to, in what is essentially a block and a half to 2 blocks, there needs to be some sort of, gradual change in zoning between the 2 sides. Was curious to see a concept as far as how that could be done. I am pleased with this one on the east side in particular, where they have left the single-family homes that abut existing residences alone and have not included that in the rezoning application. I happen to be the only one up here, I think, that actually lives in a bi-attached. And so that is part of an association. I can see how they can be maintained, the types of communities they can be. Mine happens to be one where I ended up being one of the youngest people living there. It's, just that the product tends to be, tends to draw older people. A lot of that, though, can depend on the covenants. We happen to have covenants on rental and length of rental. We can't have outdoor playground equipment in our so that's not very child friendly. But a lot of that comes down to the covenants, can drive some of that. But I don't think a bi-attached home is a bad product that necessarily means that it's going to turn into a rental property. We have had some very bad cases, or a bad case of townhomes in Polk City, but I really think that we have corrected our ordinances to minimize that repeating itself, that being related to parking, and then also knowing that this will have an association along with it. And I can think of 3 other townhome, or bi-attached, I should say, developments that have turned out to be successes. Wolf Creek in particular also has a good mix of types of housing products. They have some 6-plexes, some duplexes, some single family, and bi-attached and some single family dwellings. But we have an issue on how are we going to get from single family over to Parker Boulevard. Is this the best that can be done? Well, I'm not the developer, and so I can't say what to do with someone else's land. What I can do is look at this and see, is it being done gradually? Is the lots that are abutting land that has already been developed, is that remaining the same? So that the people that built homes there are at least not gonna have something change in their backyard different from what they should have expected to be in their backyard. And so I guess my thoughts are is it does achieve, you know, a lot of those goals.
I don't disagree with you, but I think it's too dense. I'd like to see another stab at it with a little less density.
I appreciate that you folks are in a conundrum with your land. But I also do appreciate the folks that did have come out and express their concerns. With that, I'm not going to probably make any motions, but can we, if there are no motions, can we give them direction?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think this is the type of thing that we're gonna have to do in that particular track, just because of the way things are in that area. And the having an association and everything is really a good thing, because I think that's required for this kind of a development. I don't know, I don't know, in looking at this, that T-shaped thing, drive and stuff, I'm not sure, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to, I don't know what else one might be able to do either, without sitting down, I don't know.
Well, you connect it in a loop, yeah, which would be very helpful. Probably a nightmare for fire department with this.
Not yet, because we don't have the site plan yet.
Well, we're sort of okay in this. Nobody's even looked at it yet. Fire department ain't gonna like it.
Okay. Should I move on, or?
Well, I guess I'll ask the developers, you've heard some of the comments up here, do you want a vote?
I think it might be best if, I don't know, it was a proper procedure, maybe tabling it till the next P&Z meeting. That'd give us a little time to continue to massage this plan, maybe get the fire department to weigh in. It'd be a little early in the process, but that's probably prudent given the concerns being brought forward. I think maybe we can do that. We could look at the density issue, see if maybe there's a way we could work on that. And know, to be completely frank, the density was pretty critical to the financial aspect that we're trying to balance here. But let's see what we can do. And maybe we can come back with a little bit more information on all those issues. Maybe with that, that'll make more sense. And if fire department has some better ideas, maybe we can look at those too, if that's agreeable.
Yeah, I'd like to have you meet with some concerned neighbors before you come back here, because quite frankly, I'm always going to listen to the people who live here, because that's why we're here.
Sure.
First.
Sure.
We're here to encourage the development and work with you also, and you know, that's good. It's good for the city and it's good for all of us, but I'd like to listen to the neighbors too. I'd like to have them, bring them along maybe, what you're doing and why, and I'd like, you talk about how nice these are gonna look, well.
Sure.
They don't look like much right there, so, you know, I like to see what you're really doing, go a little further.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's telling you that it's not a feasible thing. I just think it needs to be worked on a little bit more, and massaged a little bit better, and
Okay.
maybe some less density.
Okay. Thank you.
I would agree with the transition. Can definitely understand what you guys are trying to do going from those townhomes. But like he just mentioned, I'm looking at how many people approved this based off what you sent out. And you guys approved it, obviously. The church approved it, and Parker Townhomes approved it. And everyone else that lives around there that was either consenting or non-consenting, everyone else that actually lives in the area was non-consenting. Is that correct?
Or they weren't
Or they-
approached
right.
because they had the 50%. So
Yeah,
it's possible they just were never, that they didn't, if they were never approached, they're still listed as non-consenting. There's,
There's two land areas.
Which they
big
may-
enough
Right.
to say, okay.
Right, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just feels like every time we do this, there's owners and developers get enough and then they don't get the percentage from the people that actually live in the area, is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have I guess a follow-up question. When this comes back, it would be a request to rezone again, I assume. Does that mean these folks get a letter again saying that this is gonna, or do they need to be watching the website?
It's probably best if they get another letter,
Okay.
because I think that's what we're here for, is the input and trying to make the best decisions. So,
As I understand it, for a rezoning, they should get a letter for things like site plans and preliminary plats, those kinds of things. You don't get a letter. That is strictly something where you need to be looking at the website, and we're here third Thursday, or the third Monday of every month. But the rezoning, as I understand it, they should be getting a letter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Move on to item number 7, Acreage Heights preliminary plat. Consider motion to recommend approval of Acreage Heights preliminary plat located at 35.1 acres on south of Polk City, within 2 miles of Polk City's corporate limits.
Madam Chairman, before they leave, do you guys understand what's happening, or what happened?
Yep, sure do. They're tabling it until the next planning and zoning meeting,
Okay.
until next month.
Yes.
Or until they
Or
bring
until-
it back.
yeah, until next month.
Glad you do, because I'm not sure.
No problem. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, appreciate that, thank you.
the next one is a preliminary plat. This is outside of our city corporate limits, but within the 2-mile surrounding the city. And I'm not sure if there's anybody here to speak to this.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, my name's Tom Davies. I live at 2611 Northeast Bellagio Drive in Ankeny. And I'll be answering any questions. Hopefully I've got the answers to your questions here on this preliminary plat. But we have 35.9 acres. This is actually our 5th concept drawing on this plat. We actually did meet with the neighbors up at Snyder and Associates, met with the neighbors, and Polk County as well. And that's why this is our 5th drawing. Initially we had the cul-de-sac coming off of Lakeview Drive. Neighbors didn't like that. Because there were too many driveways coming off of the south street there, off of 98. You want me to, I don't have anything to, but you have a map, it looks like, so. So they wanted the cul-de-sac off of 98, and we do need to get a waiver, and it sounds like the county is okay with the length of that cul-de-sac because it is longer than the 600 feet minimum there. But the neighbors were okay with that, this last concept that we have. So we do have their approval on that. But acre sites, 1+ acre sites, so it would be a similar development to what is to the south, that Ballard Estates area there, and what's to the northeast, which would be North Bay. There on the aerial photograph, you can see that on that first page there.
Can I ask a logistical question here? The drawings are by Snyder and Associates. The applicant is McClure and Associates. What's going on?
Oh, okay, well, it's not McClure and Associates, it's not McClure Engineering, just to clarify. They are just,
okay.
It is not, yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, thanks.
does that answer?
And you can't do anything that's in Polk City, right?
Right.
But if it's outside the Polk City limits, you're okay.
Yeah, and because Polk County is technically the primary reviewing authority. So I checked with Gary about whether he would rather have another engineering firm.
But you wrote this, or Laura did.
Yeah.
I know Gary's name's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He reviewed it, had some changes though.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And we reviewed it the same way we would any other one. I mean,
Yeah, that's fine, thanks. Actually, the McClure name.
was what,
helps
yeah,
me.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I spent 3 days trying to figure that out.
Don't worry, it was one of the first questions I had as well.
Sorry.
That's okay. I thought the same too before.
Once again, I'm lost. I need to put this in perspective. Is this Cherry Glen right here?
It's by Prairie Flower.
Like, right here, I mean, this is where, yeah. I
That's
think the way
415, that's Cherry Glen.
415, so you just came up with the barrier dam's right here. You
So-
come down, you know where those two houses that are
Yeah,
Johnson's
yeah,
on the hill?
yeah,
And you come in,
Johnson's.
and then that will eventually be 18 there. This is North Bay.
And then,
This is 44th coming right outside.
okay, yeah. And this is,
Correct.
That's
this-
pretty.
that's Normie Hall's house.
Could be, that I don't know. And I don't know which parks are which.
And this Northwest Lake Drive is what used to be McBride Drive?
Well, this, I think, used to be
Highway
415, before they ever put
415.
415. Remember when, I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
that used to be.
Because it was
I think
415 and
The cemetery
where,
might be down in here somewhere.
that's
I
my
think.
next question is where's Union
I
Cemetery?
think
It
it
should
should
be
be.
close to that cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
This triangle right
Yeah,
here?
right in here.
Yep.
And for those who haven't been as long or how much longer I have, 415 used to bisect McBride's farm out there. And maybe that was 415, but everybody called it McBride Drive.
And this was McBride property, right?
Yes.
So just,
Yeah.
Oh, this is part of the McBride
Yes.
farm? So are is this little cutout corner where John McBride lives now?
yeah, that's beyond me too.
I'm sorry, I don't know if the street name's,
Yes, McBride's.
That's John.
Yep,
Yeah,
McBride's is there, and then
okay.
he's got that parcel there, and
okay.
his mom lived.
And this is all camping sites, this is all Cherry Glen?
Nope, that's Prairie Flower.
Prairie,
Cherry Glen is over here.
okay, yeah, Prairie Flower. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Kathleen, Polk County, have they reviewed this yet?
Yeah, and I haven't seen any comments or know what those comments are. And I know they're also still working with Des Moines Water Works in terms of how the water, you'll notice we have a couple comments in there on water, but it's Des Moines Water Works water line. So I know they're still working with them. So they haven't made some of the changes because they're waiting to get back, incorporate Polk City, Polk County, and Des Moines Water Works comments all at the same time.
So assuming we're okay with this, do we need to go through each one of your review comments and make comment on it?
You can if you like.
Where do we have a cul-de-sac that's too long?
Yeah, the cul-de-sac is longer than 600 feet. Your 600 feet is your maximum. So you would need to waive that in order to, to approve that it's not per your subdivision ordinance. Because of the large lot size, you probably have maybe even fewer homes on this cul-de-sac than you might otherwise if you had 80-foot wide lots in a standard subdivision. So the thinking there is it's not going to carry more traffic or anything than a standard one. It's just kind of stretched out a little bit. And it's certainly not long like Oakwood Drive or some of those cul-de-sacs that you've got. But again, we have to point out the fact that it is, in fact, longer than the 600 feet. The dead-end water mains, there I know that Brent Culp from our firm is working with Des Moines Waterworks on how those water mains would be looped and whether or not they would extend service to the south side of Northwest 98th. And actually, the south side of Northwest 98th is not even in Polk City service area. So, I mean, it would never. It's on the Ankeny side of the annexation agreement. So, so anyway, they're looking at that and working through that with Des Moines Waterworks to figure out how they're going to serve those areas. I understand they're going to be getting us a drawing that shows a 250-foot hydrant radiuses. They just, again, they're trying to get the Des Moines Waterworks issues resolved before they did that. And we will be asking for layout on the sanitary sewer on how that would be laid out. I think Polk County's asked the same thing, is my understanding, and maybe you can correct it. And what we required back when North Bay went through would be the same thing we'd require here, and that is that you'd have 30-foot wide sanitary sewer easements on the rear lot lines, so those lots could be served by sanitary sewer if it was ever made available, or if, say, the area was having trouble with their septic systems or that kind of thing. I mean, at this point, they would be individual septic systems, and there's not sanitary sewer within the distance that your code would require them to have to construct a sanitary sewer. So, but we just would request, that before this goes to council, that they would show those 30-foot wide easements so that we know it's a possibility if those folks want it and if the sewer becomes available. Centerline radius for the curve on Northwest 46th Street Circle. That's just a note that we'd ask them to. And there's a detention easement. The easements on right at this corner, we've talked that through there. Again, we'll get revised drawings, but there is a small detention pond kind of just west of Northwest 44th Street between lots 12 and 13. It's kind of triangular shaped there. If you look at the grading plan, the grading's not, so they just need to change the size of that easement so that they are leaving enough area for a driveway without getting into that easement, which again, grading-wise they've done, so it's really just changing the easement boundary. And then adjusting the location of the home so that the building pads are also not within that detention easement. Obviously, the lots are large enough they can easily accommodate that, so it's not an issue per se, it's just correcting the drawing so that it's more an accurate representation. So, and that kind of takes care of my comments on comment 7. And then there's a drain tile line that we just asked for them to show that. As I understand it, I think they're planning to relocate that, but I guess I don't.
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, there's a drain tile that runs through a septic field, which obviously, would need to be addressed. And that may be something that's addressed by the builder when they're building that septic field. We'd also, Polk City code requires 25-foot radiuses at all street intersections, which would affect kind of the southeast corner of lot 13 and sort of, the north corner of lot 7. Our recommendation there was to not necessarily maybe to waive that requirement because the right-of-way width is so much greater than what your code requires. So, it doesn't really serve a purpose there. I mean, I guess you could require that if you want to, but they've got right-of-way widths of like 100 feet as opposed to your 60s, which you might have in the same area. So they've got so much space already that picking up a corner didn't seem to. It wasn't necessary from a site distance standpoint or for utility accommodations or anything that way. Probably the only thing it would do is make it a little bit harder to construct a fence if you had the curve on it. So from that standpoint, because what they had is so much in excess of what you normally would have, we didn't require that. We did ask that detention easements be labeled as private, just to clarify that there's not that the public's not maintaining those, that the county wouldn't, and then if it was ever annexed into the city, that the city would not be taking over maintenance of those ponds. There is a drainage swale on the west side of Lot 1 that we've asked them to show an easement on, just to clarify that that's for drainage purposes. And the storm sewer easement at the pond outlet, they must have done a redesign. The easement's not quite aligning with the pipe. So again, it's a drafting error. But those we would, are just an inconsistency, I guess, between the two drawings. So those are the comments we'd ask you to make your recommendations subject to addressing those. But again, the issue would be is if there's any of those comments that Polk County was not in agreement with for some reason. And as I understand, Polk County has already agreed to that, the cul-de-sac length because of the input of the neighbors.
Well, unless I'm mistaken, the cul-de-sac, because right down here, the old 415, where this arrow is, that turns and goes back out to 415. Mm-hmm. Right now, is that going to go away?
No.
So the cul-de-sac length is just this little part.
Well, the cul-de-sac's here.
Yeah.
You're talking here. So the cul-de-sac, you measure from here.
Yeah.
And apparently they had wanted to have the cul-de-sac come this way, but the neighbors didn't like that, so.
Well, and I don't know about length, but that doesn't look near as long as some of the other ones. And I want to make a comment. If I get reprimanded for it, so be it. That old 415, McBride Drive, whatever you want to call it, it is the only thing west of 415 that goes clear through. Everything else either terminates at a cul-de-sac or the lake. So that's just an aside, that it's the only one that does go clear through. That you can start on 415 and end up on 415.
Talking about Northwest Lake Drive, is that?
Yeah.
I guess that's what they call it now.
Does Ankeny review this too?
No.
They're not close.
No, because it's that part of the thing with the annexation agreement between the two is that so a developer didn't, because North Bay went through both Ankeny and Polk City, and that was kind of the impetus for coming up, or was one of the reasons, so that there wasn't, that they didn't have to go through Polk County, Ankeny, and Polk City. So if it's on Polk City's side, Polk City will review it, and the other way is true. So yeah, like if the area to the south here was being developed now, that would just go to Ankeny. Because 98 is the split there.
98 is the line of demarcation.
There you go. That's what I was thinking of.
On those detention ponds or detention facilities there, in a situation like this, if the county or the city is not going to be responsible for maintaining those, is there an association or some kind of way that you make sure that there's a way that those are maintained, if there needs to be some maintenance, or is it just up to the neighbors to get together and do it, or what?
As of now, it's going to be up to the neighbors to maintain that.
But there's no requirement, right?
Well, it's on their property, so you'd be required to maintain what's on your property. Yeah. Now, in terms of easement documents,
So
because
those
it's in
folks
Polk
that-
County, we don't see the easement documents.
Okay, so the folks
So-
that own that property, where those,
Unless the easement specifies, or homeowners specify something different. But we don't have, I was told that we don't have the right to look at easement documents.
sure,
so.
I'm just curious how it's.
And that's why I wanted to have at least the word private there, because we don't see how,
Yeah.
at the very least, we know it's then not city to maintain, if it ever came into the city.
And we're looking at, given the values of those lots there in that cul-de-sac that are around that pond, and given our covenants per square footage, those homes are going to be upper end homes. So I can't imagine they're going to spend all that money on ground and not maintain what's going to, we feel it's going to be a nice pond there to the back. So.
I didn't mention that because it's not on a road. So
do we recommend approval to, or that council approve this as we normally would?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say subject to the issues being resolved before it goes to council. That's the conversations I've had with them. They were planning on, like I said, once they want to consolidate all the comments, make sure that, because we they didn't want to show something here and then all of a sudden find out Polk County sent them a different direction, you know. So, but before it goes to city council, we'll make sure that they've addressed the city's comments and including your comments, obviously, and as well as Polk County's and Des Moines Waterworks, because Des Moines Waterworks has a say on the water. So.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that we recommend the council approval of the preliminary plat for the McClure and Associates, Inc. Property 12 Lake Ridge Heights, subject to engineers' comments dated May 11th, 2016, and also engineers' recommendations at the same date.
Second.
Hill,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Triplett,
Yes.
Cyrus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to item 8, sorry, overview and question and answer.
This is something I've been thinking about for a little bit, and we get new people on the planning and zoning, and quite frankly, a lot's coming at us. We're a growing community. There's a lot of different things that we see coming at us, and talking with Kathleen, talking with our city attorney, I thought it would be a nice thing to either have a work session before a P&Z meeting or part of the P&Z, and let's go through, we've got 3 separate things that we can go through. We can go through plating, we can go through zoning, and we can go through site plans. I'm sure you guys have had a lot of questions. We see questions. So we would sit here with a panel of either our city engineer or her designee, Kathleen and I, and we go through some of these as this is what this means. Go through question and answer and those things and keep moving along until we can get a better comfort. Not that there's a bad comfort up here, don't get me wrong. I just think that as a city we need to offer this type of in-depth study as to what we have. How our plans work, the whole thing. So I decided to ask you folks if you would like to do this and to go through the process. I'm thinking that if we got here at 5 o'clock, if you wanted to do it before the 6 o'clock meeting, we take an hour, we go through things. We would have 3 of those meetings in a row, 1 per month, and see how far we get, and if we needed another one, we'd try it. Just trying to help.
You said city engineer, you meant city attorney?
City attorney, city engineer, and myself.
I think it's good to have a briefing. I mean, I've come in and, not very often, but asked you to take your time personally to, I don't understand what's going on here. Because I know the staff knows some things that we don't know. And sometimes we're sitting up here voting on stuff, and it's helpful if we're more up to date on some of those things, because I know you and Kathleen at least have spent a lot of time on these things. I want to make sure that it doesn't violate the open meetings law.
No, because if somebody wanted to be here, they could be here. We just won't take it, because it's a work session.
Okay.
And there's no dumb questions.
I don't have a problem with the time, but I'm halfway retired, so.
Well, then you don't have to come for a half hour.
It's, well, I think it's good to get some continuing education on this stuff all the time, so I mean, I'd be in favor of doing something like that. And the more we can, you know, learn about this stuff or discuss or whatever, I think the more effective we can be.
Well, tonight we heard, and I'm just picking on this, what's the difference between a duplex and bi-attached? So maybe we can bring pictures. This is what this is. Come a little bit more prepared, give you guys a little bit more of the knowledge sets and skill sets that you're going to need, because this isn't going to get easier, folks. I'll guarantee you, it's going to get harder.
And I like doing it like before our regular meeting, that way you don't have another time placed on the calendar. So I don't know. I could easily come at 5 o'clock. I don't know. The other folks on
I can make it.
Sometimes I don't know until the day before, so I'll try to make it.
We'll try to set something up for the June meeting then. We'll have a get-together with Kathleen, Amy, and I, and we'll come up with the areas that we're going to talk about first and make a presentation and kind of work through the book, if you will, and I hope this becomes very beneficial for you. So that's all that was, Madam Chair.
Councilor Court.
Yeah, I think this is a very good idea, and I'm going to come whether I'm invited or not, because frankly, I'm not always sure what my role is. I would like to know exactly what my role is. I've been told that I'm only supposed to carry things one way, from you to the council, but a lot of times I have questions. I think there's a lot of times that I can make comments that hopefully clear things up a little bit. And so I will be attending this meeting. I'll either be sitting out there or up here, because I think it's good that we all are informed and all get on the same page, more or less. The only thing I have to report is the recommendation on the ground that was made for across from Casey's. It passed through the council by a split vote. That's about all I have to report.
Split vote, how split?
Yes.
No, I mean.
4-1.
Okay, 4-1.
Commissioner report.
I have nothing, ma'am.
Anyone?
I have a couple things. What's an excused absent? I see that the city council passed.
Pardon?
An excused absent. I see the city council passed something that on your boards now, if you miss more than 2 meetings in a year, unless it's an excused absence, you can be removed from the commission.
Yeah.
What's an excused absence? Telling
One,
somebody you're not going to be here?
The way it was explained to me, because I asked that too, if it's prearranged, if, in other words, if you call ahead and say, I'm going to be out of town, am I wrong?
Or I'm at a funeral, or I'm in the
Or, hey,
hospital.
I'm sorry, I'm sick. Kind of like school, I think.
Okay. All right.
If I'm wrong, let me know.
Well,
but
no, I think that's fair and that's respectful. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I know I'm going to miss 3 a year.
yeah. It passed by a split vote also.
Gary, I won't be here for the June meeting.
I will look for you.
I hope we as a council understand that everyone, especially people who are in a volunteer capacity, such as you are, have lives also. You're going to have vacations, you're going to have family things. And
Thanks. The other thing is, and I really understand how busy our staff is and all the stuff that's coming at us. And a year or so ago, I asked about looking at an RV parking ordinance, and I have seen a lot more RVs parked out in the front yards in this town. The thing that bothered me, really bothered me, is I don't want to happen here is what's happening on Beaver. When you turn the corner and go south, somebody's parked a junk RV there. And I don't want that to happen here. And it could happen here pretty easy. Most of the stuff that I see around looks nice, and I know people need a place to park these. And I know it's expensive to rent a place to park them too. And I'm just wondering if we've got time to look at that. I know Mason City, there was an article in the Des Moines Register a year or so ago about Mason City having a lot of problems with this, and they passed an ordinance, and I see boats parked on grass beside houses and stuff like that. I actually see them on other people's property when they're in between, because the boats are bigger than the setbacks, and I just saw it yesterday. But I think we ought to have something. We're trying to make our town look better and not add to things, and kind of, bring it up a little bit. And I know we're concerned about making this look better, and I know we've got people across the street are really trying to do things, which are nice. So can we find time for do that? Would you like me to look into Mason City's ordinance and get a hold of it and kind of look at it and pass it on to you or to the council?
Anything that you would like to do, Doug. It is staff's intent to bring back some areas that were identified in the comp plan, and this would be one that we would be bringing back with that. In the comprehensive plan that we did, there was a lot of areas, not a lot of areas, there were areas identified, if you will, for changes to be made. Your RV didn't hit the comp plan, but it is something that we've always had on the burner. So what I'd like to do is get an ordinance in front of you that changes certain things. And let's say we work on zoning the first time, and then site plans on the second, and subdivision regulations. I think basically our zoning ordinance is in pretty good shape. There's a few things, and I think that would be an easy one to hit. Subdivision needs a reworking, and that was identified in the comp plan, as one of the authors should know. What you're saying isn't falling on deaf ears. I will tell you that the last 18 months has been crazy, and we're just jumping from one item to the next, and we're not getting back to all of the things that you're asking for.
Yeah, that's fine. And you went through staff changes, or you had people here for a long time, and I know it's hard. And, I guess if we can help, or I can help to look at something that, because we brought it up, I'd be glad to do that. But at the same time, I don't want somebody on the city council coming to you and saying, well, how come you got somebody else doing your job, And I'm not. I'm just trying to help, but I don't want to put you in a bad position or staff in a bad position.
I don't think you'd be putting me in a bad position. If you have something that you see that works, yes, I'd like to see it.
Okay. So it's in the works?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really, this has been talked about in detail.
Okay. And I think the other thing we talked about was how some of these places look, Maybe that's something we'd like to see up front. Maybe if what they presented tonight, there's some nice looking places. Have shown us some nice looking places, Parker Boulevard would have been a nice place to have better looking units there than what they are. They're okay. But, and he keeps them up, and he does keep his word. It'd be nice to have something that's just a little bit nicer in that area. So I think that may be more important than that, because we're getting so much in there now. Okay, thanks.
I really appreciate what you're saying, Doug, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but the way I feel about it is, yeah, we talk about these ordinance changes, or zoning changes, or whatever changes they are, and it doesn't happen. In the meantime, we're hit with 4 other projects. Now, if we do pass it, they're exempt. So it's something we need to get these, in my mind, we need to get them in place. And having said that, we're going to have to spend some money, because it costs money to write new ordinances, but so be it. It's money well spent in my mind. So I really appreciate what you're saying.
Well, I think the money spent you're talking about is maybe having Snyder assist us.
Well, we'll have some legal in them and
Okay.
lots of things. But we're also known in Polk City as not to reinvent the wheel. We're going to look at other people who has that ordinance, and then we're going to take those ordinances and make them fit us for the most part.
And then the other thing about the work session, why do we need the attorney here? Isn't that sort of every time an unnecessary expense? Or is that...
To have an attorney at our meetings?
Yeah, at the work sessions you were talking about.
I think that was just one of the sessions, was to have a session with the city attorney.
I think all 3 I would like to have the attorney, just so we can dive into one thing. So if you've got a question, I don't know what the question might be, but if you have a question that would come up, you may get an answer from me that's different from the attorney. I may say you have this latitude, and the attorney may say, no, it's not quite that much, Gary, it's actually smaller.
That's fine. That's you're up to you. You're the person that knows it best. But I just don't want to be spending a lot of the city's money if it's unnecessary. I don't think we've had a lot of legal questions.
Haven't had a lot of legal questions, but the interpretation of some of the things that we get into may go back to legal, and it's just easier to have that discussion right there.
Okay.
Because then it would be, well, okay, I understand your point, but what about if we went this direction?
Okay.
So you would have the back and forth, question and answer, if you will, idea gathering, that type
Besides,
of
it's the
thing.
city attorney that gives the okay on all the ordinances and everything else at the county. She has to review all that stuff before the council approves it,
So they would stay for the P&Z meeting too.
She could.
Session at 5.
She could, but I think that we get through the work session, and unless we've got something, yeah, we'd move on.
Just, as an example, for tonight's meeting, before we put together the memo on the rezoning, said, okay, well, what do we do? We've got a request here, and the city's already sent out notices for R2 zoning. But what they're proposing doesn't fit very well in R2, and so I talked that through with the city attorney to make sure that it would be fine if you had chosen to go forward with the PUD recommendation. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even had that as an option, but I did need to make sure with her that because the notices had gone out, even though the planning and zoning is not a required hearing, we wanted to make sure that we weren't encouraging you in a direction that then, if you get to council, she would think that was not an appropriate
We aren't
course.
hearing at all, are we? We're just
Pardon?
a public meeting kind of?
Well, and it's technically, yeah, it's noticed your notices are sent out as if it's a public hearing in the sense that you allow the public to speak and address it, but
Actually,
it's not a required
Not a
public.
state required.
Or your own code doesn't require it either. So that's why you have a little bit more flexibility than, city council, they couldn't have switched gears and said, well, we're going to vote on PUD instead of R2, because that would have violated the notice law.
The notice goes out with the header of just notice of petition for rezoning. P&Z, which is different than the way it's set up for council. So yeah, you can speak, but it doesn't call out it's a public hearing like it does when I send them out for the council meeting.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Moved.